Metric Motorcycle Madness presents pressing in wheel bearings without any special tools. Hey guys, Metric Motorcycle Madness. Today we're going to be pressing in wheel bearings to the front wheel of this Honda Shadow. We didn't do a video for removing them because the problem with most front wheels on why you can't do this with simple tools without having bearing pullers or specialized dealer tools is that you can see the hub. It's not very wide, so this spacer that fits in there doesn't have a lot of movement room, and when you're going to remove wheel bearings using the old-fashioned method with a screwdriver and hammer, the spacer doesn't move around enough where you can actually get behind the spacer across to the other side and tap the bearings out. So it doesn't work with the front. That being said, you need a specialized dealer tool that basically it's kind of like an expanding rod, and it expands in the center of the bearing, and they either have a slide hammer that they just tap it out with, or they have another one where they go from the other end and then hit it with a punch and it comes out the other end. But you're not going to be able to find any normal, automotive bearing pullers. Ones for vehicles are usually going to have clamps, jaws that go on the outside, so you're not going to be able to get into there easily with something like that. So for the purpose of that, this being a front wheel, I'm not going to show you how he did that. But it doesn't mean you can't put them in the old-fashioned way. So we still have a spacer, of course. And these are the old bearings. Step 1, keep the old bearings. You're going to need the old bearings if you're going to put them back in this way. Step 2, get yourself some gloves, because this is going to be messy and you're going to have to be cleaning the spacer and the inside of the wheel out really good, and then adding in new grease and packing the new bearings with new grease. So step number 2, we're going to be taking grease, and we want to make sure it's high temperature, designed for extreme temperature applications. And the reason we're doing that is because when that wheel gets going around, the revolutions per minute, it will start to heat up, and the lower temp grease will start to break down and just gum up in your wheel bearings, and you don't really want to have to deal with that. It does say recommended for wheel bearings, U-joints, fan hubs, etc., etc. Not expensive, so you don't really have to buy a squeeze gun with it if you don't want to. Second thing, grab some brake cleaner, or if you want, carb cleaner, something with acetone, basically, just to eat up grease that's sitting in that hub and rust as well. So we're going to take the wheel here and start on one side. And just hit this with a little bit of brake cleaner right in this hole here. Recess, and just take a rag and just go around and get all that excess old grease and rust in particular out of there. This one has a bit of corrosion and rust in there. One of the sides of the bearings, the dust seal, was pretty much failed, so. And you're just going to do that on both sides until it looks nice and clean. Right now it needs a little bit more. The other thing you're going to do afterwards, don't be afraid to spray inside the hub and hit it with an air compressor and just blow all that shit out of there. A lot of people don't do that step, and then they get dirt into their bearings from the back end and then wonder why they fail quicker. Alright, so we have the new wheel bearing kit. In there is 2 new bearings, the large seal and the small seal. There's actually 2 small seals. Now, if you're wondering why there's 2 small seals, because from what I remember, there was only one small seal on this end, and then the other end had the large seal, is because aftermarket wheel bearing kits, as you can see, are for many different bikes. Don't forget to save your nice little sticker. So you got your small one here and your large one. So we're gonna save those out. And our 2 bearings. And after that, we're gonna put grease on around the outside, around the inside ring. So as we press this into the hole, it's going to slide in there nice and easy. The axle will slide back in nice and easy. And when it's actually going around in revolutions, then it will move very nicely and freely. If you see this one, if you put your finger in it and you turn it, it spins nice and freely. There's no noise whatsoever. Take one of the old ones. One of them was worse than the other. Let's see which one here. That one was actually alright. I think it was this one. I'm not sure if you can hear that, but the rollers do have some noise, and it's kind of there's definitely some grit and sand in there, and you can hear that they've gone bad. The other thing that you can know of how they've gone bad is this middle spacer. If you wiggle it up and down, especially if the wheel's still on, they're still in there, and you got wheel movement, that's actually means there's play between the bearings and that the bearings are worn out. This one actually isn't that bad. It's that one that was shot. But, you know, they're filled with shit, so we're just going to replace them. And don't confuse this stuff with cranberry sauce, because I'm sure it doesn't taste like it. Not going to be able to hold this, but you get the idea. That we've coated the old one really good. We have it sitting in the top recess, and we actually just set the old bearing right on top of it. And all we're going to do now is take a plastic hammer and just tap it evenly along each side, gently and rotating around and press it in like that. And it's going to sit down in a little recess. We're going to do the small side first, just for good measure. And don't be worried, the old bearings actually, as you get towards the bottom, may start to seat into the channel. But you can just actually pull that back up with a screwdriver. It's just going to be a suction kind of thing. It's not going to actually get pressed in there. So we're just going to go around gently with a hammer now and do that. The process really isn't too bad. So you can also use a metal if you want, because you have your old bearing protecting the new one. All you just gotta do is just go around in little circles like this. Just like that until you get it all the way seated into the bottom channel. And you'll feel it with the hammer. It'll make a bottomed out kind of sound. So after that fluke, we've put that in there. It's seated at the bottom. You can see that it's seated at the bottom of the channel. If you flip the wheel over and peer down, you can actually see. So we've got the dust seal now. We're going to press that in. That's the side that's going to face inside and seal it, of course. See, it's got the little metal spring. It's just like a dust seal on a fork, pretty much. So we're going to lube this up with some grease and then just seat that in. with this, all you can do is, actually you could probably use the old bearing for the same deal, because that should be able to seat down in there. If not, you can always use a bent punch method. Remember, you always want to hit on the outside of these, not the inside where the seal goes. And nothing that's going to punch through this rubber at all. Nothing that's sharp. So what we're going to do now is lube up this spacer. And it's going to sit down in a little channel in there and sit up against the other bearing we just pressed in. And then we're going to press the new one on top of that and the new large seal. This is where the speedo fits in, into this side of the wheel. So, remember, inside and out, set it down in, and then we'll set our bearing in. Now, while you're pressing this in, you want to take a screwdriver and make sure that spacer stays centered, because it should sit up and get pretty close to that bearing and actually touch it. So you want to make sure it doesn't fall out of either channel. And this one, like I said, I don't think this one's going to get stuck in here because it's wide enough of a groove. So you're going to just gently, like before, take this and just all the way around. Like so. So now the bearing has been pressed in. You can see it seated around the channel. The space, I know you can't really see it, but the spacer is lined up. It hasn't moved. And all that's left now is to press in the last big dust seal. And pack this up good with grease too before you put it in here. Get right in the channel there, actually. It's probably a better idea. Just go right around with it. Like that. Forgot to mention this little spacer needs to sit in before the large dust seal into that groove so the speedo gear can sit on that and link up. This one you got to be very gentle with because this one can bend pretty easily. And these are going to like to pop out too. This one, for the most part, you can start to press it in by hand. And you can get it to seat up until a certain point. Oh, I need to get this. And we'll just tap that in, and that is it, folks. That is how you press bearings in with normal household tools.